My grandmother taught me at a young age. So we were baking, we were painting, we were making everything. Just, she was really crafty. My mom was also crafty. Like I remember her reupholstering her own chairs, and like trying to figure out how to do it and sewing all of our Halloween costumes. And my grandmother was the same way. So my grandmother actually taught me to paint in oil when I was 11. She got me my first set. Well, gave me my first set. And they were vintage tubes from the 60s that were still good. And she gave me all the colors that we had worked with, and we'd watch Bob Ross together and paint Bob Ross pictures, and that's how I originally learned to paint in oil, was my grandmother. And baking, I baked with my grandmother her entire life. I mean, she always baked. The amount of Christmas cookies that woman would produce is like astounding. She would have like 25 different flavors. Oh, yeah. And she'd call me after I'd left and I moved to Colorado, and she'd be like, "What do you want for Christmas?" I'm like, "A box of Grammy's Christmas cookies. That's all I want. I don't want any money. I just want my Christmas cookies." So every year she would send me a box of her Christmas cookies. And they were, we'd all fight over the candy cane cookies. Those were our favorites. Mizum and Atea would be like, "You ate more than your share," So really, I guess I've always kind of been crafty. It's just in my blood, I guess. I taught myself how to hand sew. I learned how to use a machine just by watching my mom and my grandmother.
Did better than I did. I just didn't get that bobbin thing. I don't know.
I mean, I taught myself beadwork. I used to do a lot of peyote stitch and loom work, and I mean, I've done so many things. And sometimes I think that it's overwhelming because I'm like, oh, well, what do I want to do? Mm-hmm. But I know how to do all these things, so I don't know which one to pick.
Right.
And then it gets overwhelming, and I kind of just get in this place of like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
Like, I mean, they all are beautiful in their own right, and they all feel good to do because it's, part of self-expression, but sometimes it's overwhelming. I'm like, oh, maybe I could sell beadwork, or, maybe I could sew costumes, or, it's just like this huge, vast, like, amount of craft knowledge that I've taken on, but sometimes it's overwhelming.
Because do you feel like if you focus all your energy in one place, then you'll be missing so much from the other ones?
Exactly. Yeah. And that makes it challenging.
I understand.
And then I never feel like there's enough time in a day.
Oh, there isn't.
I'm like, but
I think we should have a few more hours every night.
Yeah, that'd be great. So I did, spend 8 years in college.
Oh, okay.
So I did have a lot of training at Front Range. I would say CU, it's painting department, there is zero training. It's very conceptual. They're more concerned about your concept versus your skills. That was really frustrating for me. So what saved me at CU is I started taking ceramics. That was my saving grace at CU, because the painting department was really frustrating for me. Because I'm like, well, there's things I want to learn that I feel like I'm not learning, and they were just stressing the concept. What's your concept?
Tell me a little bit more about that, because I'm not a painter.
So concept is like, well, what does your work mean? What's your work about? Oh. Instead of what does your work look like?
Would you tell me a little bit more about the painting with the green dress?
Okay, so I did a dress series. It started with my grandmother's dress, that one.
Oh, that's her dress, the blue one.
Yep, the blue one is my grandmother's.
That's beautiful.
It was her prom dress. I have the prom dress, actually.
Isn't it fun to dress up in those old dresses? I used to do that with my mom's dresses.
That was the first painting I did after the flood. It took me a minute to get my head together after the flood. And so I started a dress series, and I did a series of just dresses, but they were all based off of women. So I had King Sung and Jing Sung, who were the oldest living twins, Japan. One was like 116 and one died at 114. So they're 2 dresses on the same canvas. And then I did Bridget. I can't remember her last name. She was the first woman to die in the witch trials.
Oh.
So I did her dress. I did Rosa Parks' dress. Oh. And Allison Highwolf was, it's kind of a weird story. Hardin, Montana is it's like it sounds. Hardin. It's hard. And that's where the Crow Reservation is in Montana. And we were actually traveling, because I'm from Montana, we were coming back to Colorado. We had just visited my family. And we stayed in a motel in Hardin, because everything else was booked. And Danny woke up in the middle of the night screaming. And I was like, what is, like, he was like, she was standing over me. He had seen a ghost, and he didn't even believe in ghosts.
Chills.
He didn't even believe in ghosts. He was freaked out. Like, I mean, he woke up, Zim, Natea, me, we were all just like, I mean, blood-curdling scream. The next morning, he's like, I don't even believe in ghosts. And this is what happened. And he got on the internet, and some woman had died in that motel room. They couldn't identify her, but Allison Highwolf, I believe, was also missing at the same time. So I had taken a picture of the sunset that night, and that's the green dress. That is that sunset that night. And when I kind of did more and more research, I, came across this whole documentary of missing Indigenous women,
right,
and how big of a deal it is.
Sure.
So I did that painting after I found out about the missing Indigenous woman, and I thought maybe it was her.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, you connected with that.
Yeah, I did, and I
That's
was like, I want to do one that honors her or talks about her,
right?
Because I don't think enough people talk about it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow, well, do you have that?
Yeah,
here?
The green dress. Yeah, it's upstairs. I guess for me, it's like the dress is kind of in rags, because I felt like what we know about her is in rags, and what happened to her is in rags. And there's little tiny scissors that are cutting the dress, because someone, you don't know who is the person that created that idea of where did she go? Who, by whose hand, so it's kind of like this, I guess the scissors kind of represent whoever murdered her or kidnapped her, or, who knows. So it's kind of like these scissors are floating and you don't know who's cutting. And that's kind of that story, I think.
Wow. Okay.
I was like, wow, what happened to this woman? Was it the woman, was her ghost in that hotel room, or is she somewhere else? I mean, is she in sex slavery? I mean, what's happening to these women?
Right. Yeah.
It's really messed up.
I
yeah.
Agree. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because it seems like once Gabby Petito was missing, the whole United States was watching it on TV, and we were all wondering what happened to her. Yeah. And there've been so many more.
Yeah.
I actually think there's even a missing person right now in Boulder, a woman.
There is, I just read it in the Denver Post. Yeah. She was last seen on somewhere in Denver. It's just, I don't understand what the hiccup is. Like, why, like, when a white woman ends up gone, disappeared, there's like all this news coverage and everyone's looking, and then, but then when there's an Indigenous woman missing, it's like they talk about it once and then it's over.
If they even talk about it.
Yeah, like even, recently, it was a few years ago, I always stop at this rest stop in Billings, Montana. It's a really nice rest stop on my way up to Kalispell. Well, an Indigenous woman came up missing right there at that rest stop. They finally located her body, but it took a long time. Like seeing videos on TikTok, more and more women are speaking up about the fact that there's all these Indigenous women that are missing. Yeah. And there's no leads, and there's, I watched a whole documentary about it a couple months ago, I think on Netflix. And it goes into depth of these missing Indigenous women. It was pretty powerful. It took place on the Blackfoot reservation in Montana where I grew up. I grew up right outside of the Blackfoot reservation. So I had Blackfeet friends, you know. Browning is a really hard town.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's scary.
Is that where your grandma lived?
No, my grandmother, so we originally all lived in Great Falls, Montana together. That's where the Air Force base is. My grandfather was in the Air Force for 45 years. And then when they retired, they moved to Butte. So they lived in Butte until my grandmother got sick. And then they moved to Kalispell. So my mom could take care of her. My grandmother ended up passing away in a nursing home. My mom couldn't take care of her anymore. And it was really, really hard on my mom. She was there like 4 times a day, every day, religiously, just to make sure everything was good.
Right.
And I spent the last week with her. She had decided that she wanted the feeding tube removed. And after watching that for several days, I was like, Mom, you gotta call hospice. You have to. Like, this is not how this should go down. So my mom called hospice right after I left. And within 24 hours, my grandmother was gone. So I fix clothes. I do altar clothes. I don't do wedding dresses. I do some prom dresses. I have to be a little picky, just because some fabrics are extremely difficult to work with.
Sure.
And yeah, I'm self-taught. So I'm definitely cheaper than a tailor.
So do people come and drop things off, or
Yep.
how do they communicate with you? Usually?
So usually they do Facebook Messenger. They'll ask me about certain items, or I'll see them in public and they'll ask me about certain items. If you don't need a fitting, I have a wood box on my porch. So they drop things off in the wood box with a note, their name, phone number. Usually I'll have clients just mark their pants where they need them hemmed, put them in the box. I sew them, I put them back in the box, and then they come and pick them up. I do a lot of hemming, you know, because short
like
people,
Anna's.
yeah, yeah, like your daughter.
Yeah. And so, like, are any of these like official businesses or?
Well, I noticed, so I did run my seamstress business on Main Street. I rented a studio front from Val at the Corner Studios, and she gave me a killer deal on that room. You know, she was just like, I like having somebody here, you know, it kind of benefits both of us. But at the end of the day, I wasn't making enough money to even pay for that room. It was, you know, a way, I guess, of advertising so that people knew that I was in town. So it was an official business at one point in time, but then I realized it's hit or miss. Like, you have your busy season and then you have your no season, where you can't rely on it to make a living. It basically will pay a utility bill, you know, and that's about it. So.
And so you have these different things that you can do kind of year round. I remember when I worked for Gwen at the greenhouse, she had different things that she would do year round to supplement during the non-growing season. And so it's kind of, that's how you have to do it around here. I mean, even in Lyons, it's seasonal.
Oh, it totally is. Yeah. Amanda's Sugar and Spice and Everything Nice was an official business. I dissolved it after I got hired at Mojo's full time, because I had to refinance my house. And being self-employed is really hard to refinance. So I kind of dissolved the business after that. And then I kind of decided, you know, after Mojo's and after getting laid off and, like, you know, all these things, that I would rectify the business again, you know, like make it again and register the business again. I just applied for the Lafayette Farmers Market because it is way cheaper than Boulder or Longmont.
Oh, okay.
So I'm waiting to hear back from them by the end of the month. And if I have that, then I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the commercial kitchen.
Cool.
Yeah. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
And so tell me a little bit about how that compared to working at another job. How would this be doing the things that you like to do for your job? How would that be better or is it better, or is it harder, or?
Oh, I think it's scary and it's hard. But after working in, the service industry for so many years, and really sometimes there's a lack of respect or compassion, or you're kind of treated as like a robot. I felt like it was so impersonal, and it's like it doesn't feel personable. It feels, I don't know. It wasn't satisfying. Like when I worked at Sam's Club, I worked in the bakery, and I was frosting all those cakes. It was so robotic and so like not human.
Like assembly lines?
Yeah, like it just didn't feel, I don't know, it didn't feel right. I'm like, wow, this doesn't fit with me. This doesn't work with me.
Were they trying to make you do it quickly?
Oh, yeah. They had certain standards. You had to be able to frost 7 cakes within an hour. They had all these standards that you had to try
That's
to
a lot
fill.
of cakes.
Oh, yeah.
These are big cakes, I'm
Yes.
assuming, yes.
Yes. Like complicated cakes, frosting, so many steps, and you had to hit your mark. Otherwise, you were penalized. So every time you didn't hit your mark, you were penalized by Sam's Club. So the more you got penalized, the more you were looking at being fired or looking at your pay being cut, or, there were so many different factors.
And you're just trying to do the thing that you like to do.
Essentially.
But it doesn't become that anymore.
No, not when you're working like that. It doesn't. It loses all humanity.
What does all that mean, a plant-based version?
Okay, so I drastically had to change my diet in my 30s because I was having a lot of health issues, stomach issues. Come to find out, I'm lactose intolerant. I'm allergic to eggs. I got really bad food poisoning from meat. So I actually, all I eat is plants, except for an occasional fish. I do love sushi. But so it was important to me not just to convert some of those recipes that were like comfort food for me that I wanted to still be able to enjoy without getting sick. So for me, it was important to, create this taste, like experience in your mouth that you could, it tastes like there's butter in it. It tastes like there's eggs in it, but there's not. And that was really important to me, to make it taste exactly how she had them, the exact same way. So I did that with a lot of recipes, and I do that with, I'll read a meat and cheese recipe on the internet and I'll convert it. Be like, nope, do this and do that, do this and do that. Because I love food and flavor. Like there's something so wonderful that happens in your mouth when you're like eating something that you're, I call it food you dream about. So like you eat something so good that you can't stop thinking about it, and you're like, oh, I want to go back to that restaurant and have it again. And I call it food you dream about. So, food's always been important to me, especially after, not having food and, being homeless and, not having ways to cook or not having food. Dumpster diving for food. Food's always been, was a scarcity for me growing up. My mom was a waitress. We didn't have money. At one point, she just stopped feeding us, stopped going to the grocery store. I discovered the food bank when I was 12 years old. I started going to the food bank to feed me and my little sister. So, food was always a hard thing. So, yeah, when I grew up, I was like, good food is good.
Right.
So plant-based means all plants, no animal products. So, no butter. You can always substitute butter for coconut oil, or, there's a brand out there called Mayoko's, and you can get cultured oat milk butter. So I guess veganism, plant-based diet has come a long ways in terms of like the food market. There's so many different products out there now that are like actually taste good. Like before, I remember smelling vegan cheese and being like, oh my God, it smells like barf. I would never eat that. I'm sorry. It smells like barf. I'm not eating that. But now it's like the world is open and there's all these new companies out there that create like really amazing products. You're like, this is mushrooms, and it's meat. It's like meat, but not meat because it's made from mushrooms, and you can trick anybody.
I like cocoa sheen.
Oh yeah.
Have you had that?
Yeah, that's delicious. My grandmother, I always picture her in the kitchen, because she spent so much time in the kitchen. She had a marble rolling pin, and she had a pink KitchenAid mixer, because everything, she loved pink. I mean, pink crystal dishes, those are her dishes. So for me, it was it's always nostalgic when I'm, mixing a batter. It's always reminds me of her. And in terms of like, the flavor is also nostalgic, being a little kid and eating a ginger cookie and it's warm out of the oven and Grammy's over there making more, or she's making a different type of cookie and the house always smelling so good, like butter and sugar. Like who doesn't want their house to smell like butter and sugar?
Sounds delicious.
Right? I guess, for everything I've learned, whether it be baking, cooking, beadwork, seamstress work, I still feel like a child learning something new. And that for me is one of the most rewarding things is that I still get to feel like a little kid. Because I'm like, oh, I didn't know you could do that with a sewing machine. Or, oh, I didn't know I could do that with cooking, or, and it's constantly learning new things, and that's what feeds it. So if you're not learning new things and you're just kind of like going through the motions and repeating, you're not going to have fun. You're not going to enjoy it as much. And I think learning is very enjoyable, especially if you're learning about things you really want to know about. So I say, learn as much as you can about it. And then when you're done, maybe move on to something else so you can feel like a little kid learning new things. And that's what I learned in college, that I loved learning new things. And it was actually very satisfying to the soul to learn new things. I miss college all the time.
Yeah,
I
feel
loved
like,
it.
For me, when I've heard about people talking about, core memories, and that when you do something for the first time, you're making a core memory. And so if we keep on putting ourselves in these routines where we're just doing the same thing over and over again, we don't ever get to, that's when time is speeding up so fast and your life is going by too fast. But if you slow down and start doing things that you've never done before, then you start making new core memories about painting or cooking, and then that's when time slows down, like you're a child again. I think. It can really make you feel lost in the moment.
Yeah, which is good, because I don't think a lot of humans get lost in the moment. They're so wrapped up in, like I got to go to work and I got to pay this bill, and which I understand. Honestly, I made this move because my kids are grown and I no longer have to take care of them, like feed them, clothe them, house them, even though, I still send them money and I still help Natea. It was like, now what? I spent my whole 20s, 30s, working and taking care of my kids as a single mom. And now that they're grown, I'm like, oh, midlife crisis. This is when it happens. Now what? Now what do I do? Which you're coming into, because Alex is what? Is he a junior?
Alex is a sophomore this year.
A sophomore, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm older than you, so I feel it for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like the empty nest thing or just me being like, I don't know how long I'm gonna live, and if I have to,
I have those feelings
yeah,
too.
right. And it's like, if I have to work a shitty job that I don't find any joy in, that's just sucking my soul, what was my life worth?
Exactly.
What was it?
What are you going to leave
Yeah.
to your, I don't know, and what kind of an example are you going to set for your child
Yeah.
to be able to say, did I follow the things that were important to me? Or, I mean, I really understand there was a whole generation of people who really worked hard in jobs that they didn't want just to
Survive.
be able to help the next generation.
Yeah.
And I know they've been doing that for a long time. And here we are lucky to be able to suddenly do our own thing. But I think it's important to realize that we're in that time where we can be creative and
I think more and more people need to do it, and that there needs to be a revolution in the workforce where it's like, no, I'm not going to slave away for slave wages. We're not doing it anymore. We're all human beings, and we all deserve respect, and we all deserve a home. Like, something has to change here. Yeah, we're all human beings on one planet.
yeah.
Enough's enough. Like, oh, what's mine is mine. No, we're all in it together.
That's right.
We are all on the same planet.
Water belongs to the earth.
Yes. Like, oh my God, it's so frustrating. So that's kind of, I've had that shift in me, I guess, where I was just like, no, I've been doing this for too many years, and I'm done.
And we don't have to keep doing things the same way we've been doing them all these years. And we can rethink new ways that we can enjoy life more.
Yeah. Yep.
How can people get your baked goods if they want to reach out to you for your baked goods?
So right now I have the Facebook business page or my personal Facebook page. Facebook has been such a great avenue for advocating my business and getting, people interested and people buying. Right now, like I said, I applied for the Lafayette Farmers Market. So if that goes through, then I'll be advertising, hey, I will be at the Lafayette Farmers Market. I will also be at Main Stage's once a month market, the first Sunday of every month.
For Lions Sundays?
Yep, for the summer, I guess. I think it's May through October is what Jody said. And I will probably be talking to the town if I can get in on the concerts in the park again, which I did that one year.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, it was great. Yep.
And would you talk about how you were at Stonebridge?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I was at the Stonebridge craft fair or holiday market. Stonebridge, I've known them for so many years. When after the flood, there was a woman that worked at Stonebridge, and sadly she passed away of cancer. She left all of her money to Stonebridge and asked them to give it to someone who in need. So actually, I've been sharing a share at Stonebridge ever since the flood, and they offer it to me every year.
Wow.
Yeah, free of charge.
Wow, so you just get vegetables. Wow.
And which
awesome.
is great because I eat a lot of vegetables. And I started writing a recipe book to kind of go along with, because in the spring it's like spinach and, excuse me, like spring vegetables. And you're like, oh, what do I do with all the spinach? Or what do I do with all this basil? So I started kind of putting a recipe book together for them slowly. It's taking me years. But eventually I'd like to give it to them so that they can give it to their members. So that's kind of me like paying it back.
Right.
Because it's been so helpful to have all those vegetables. I mean, it has saved my life. Especially when I'm really poor and broke and don't know how I'm going to eat.
Right.
Me and Kaylee Sue had an art show there. Usually when I do an art show, I do one with Kaylee Sue. She's one of my favorite artists to work with. It's always really enjoyable and fun. And, the last art show was at the library where we collaborated.
Sure.
Which was really cool. So the last 3 years we've been collaborating. So we first had Women of the Circus. We actually had a circus with our friends and live music and a circus tent. on an island on Apple Valley Road. And then we had, the second year we did erotica. So it was Women of Erotica. Not trashy stuff, but like, you know, we came across this reading about women that were into erotica in like, you know, the early 1900s and stuff, which was like burlesque dancing. And, you know, it wasn't that they were, you know, prostitutes. I mean, some of them probably were, but it was one way in which women in the early 1900s could make a living. Same with the circus. Those women in the circus got paid the same amount of money as the men. There was no inequality in pay in the circus. So we did an erotica show on the island as well. We hired a drag queen and a burlesque dancer and a hula hooper, and had live music and had an art show set up. We had 3 different living rooms, and our paintings were in the living rooms, and each living room had a theme. And then last year is when we did Women of Lions. And so we collaborated on that one and did just Women of Lions, except, you know, I did my grandmother, but, you know, had to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was fun. And next we're working.
And that's her, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Next we're working on, we might be getting into the Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art.
Ooh,
so
wow.
we're working on like dresses that are sculptural that will be on the wall.
I love the way, what gave you the idea of having them be so 3D with the, I mean, that's so
ceramics.
unusual. Oh, really?
Ceramics, like I said, was my saving grace in college, and I loved it so much that I wanted to incorporate it with my painting. So then I started going like 2-dimensional, but wanted 3-dimensional things to come out, and that was kind of like my thesis when I graduated, was this idea of incorporating 3-dimensional work into 2-dimensional. And since then, I've been seeing so many artists play with that. Like, some really cool things are coming out when you mix the two together. I'm like, wow, so many people are doing it now. Dang it, I should have become famous earlier.
Wonder what the concepts are, right?
Yeah, concept.